Well, here we go. Welcome to class. We're going to be making the sunflower today. And I just want to show you a little bit about this sunflower. We're also going to cover the stitching. And I'm going to show you the back of this, because this class also includes the thread play. And you could put a solid backing on your quilt, and you could really become a master of thread play after this class. This is a great quilt to learn how to do thread play. Why? Because look how big the petals are. So you can really spend time, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So let's get started. For this class, you're going to need a few things. You're going to need either the pattern, and you can get your own fabrics from your stash, or you're going to purchase the pattern and the kit. So you can use the pattern with your own fabrics, or you can purchase the kit that comes with the pattern and comes with fabrics I've already picked out for you. Okay? You're also going to need a background fabric. And I do have background fabrics on my shop, my Etsy shop, but there's all kinds of great backgrounds out there. I've had people do pink backgrounds and red backgrounds, blue, green. So you pick the background that you like for your flower. And we don't decide the background until after we get our flower done. So you don't have to have it to start the class. But I recommend at least a half a yard or a yard. That way you have, if you get a yard, you have enough fabric for the front and the back of your quilt. You're going to need some parchment paper. This is some clear, very clear, large parchment paper that I sell on my website that I love because it's very sheer and see-through. You can also use the parchment paper from the grocery store. Make sure it's parchment paper, because parchment paper is non-stick. That's why we're using it instead of a Teflon pressing sheet. We're going to use the parchment paper. And we'll be able to see our lines underneath this parchment paper. So you're going to need a lot of straight pins. You're going to need a glue stick, and you're going to need some nice scissors. Okay? And try to get a scissor that doesn't have a serrated edge. Okay? Knife edge scissors, because we're going to cut through fusible web, steam too, and the goo is going to get on your scissors. Okay, I'll show you how to get the goo off your scissors, but a knife edge blade, see, I already have goo on these scissors. I don't know if you can see it there, but they still cut because they have a knife edge blade. Another good pair of scissors are, I use these Gingers too. Okay, they have a knife edge blade, which means they'll keep on cutting when they get sticky on them. If you have a serrated edge scissor, the little serrations will get full of goo and they will clog up and it'll be hard to cut. So having the right scissors, the right tool for the job is always a good idea. These are my favorite from my friend Karen K. Buckley, and I have these on my website too. You also, later, we're going to need a ruler. I like to use a nice long ruler. This is my Alex Anderson ruler, and it has a little rubberized right here so I don't cut my finger again. So that's a handy thing to have. And you're going to need an iron. Okay, an iron. I got some water in it because we may be using a little bit of steam. Okay, I forgot one thing you're going to need. The most important thing you're going to need is the fusible web. This is a Steam 2, and I will have, and it's 12 inches wide right here. That's 12 inches wide, and this is a 3-yard bundle. And you can get right now 3-yard bundles off my Etsy shop also, or you can use packages. Will do really well, but you should get 2 packages. Okay, if you get the packages. This is Steam 2. Not the light. I don't use the light because the light does not stay pressed down when I'm trying to quilt, do my thread play. The light always peels up. Okay, so I use the regular Steam 2, and I'll show you how. Part of this class, I'm going to show you how to master sewing through fusible web. There's some tricks, and that's why I'm teaching the class, so I can share those with you. But Steam-A-Seam 2, there's a right side to the Steam-A-Seam 2, and it has this grid on it. And then the other side is a solid piece of parchment paper. And this is the side, the solid, that we will peel up and expose our sticky fusible web. Steam-A-Seam 2 is sticky on both sides. Now don't freak out. When I first worked with it, I realized that my paint sticks where I put it when I'm painting a painting. And when I've ironed this on my fabric, this sticks where I want it also. So I started approaching my flower quilts like I was painting a painting. I have an art background. I've painted all my life, but I wanted to see if I could do this with just fabric and use fabric as my paint. So that's my technique. There's nothing wrong with painting. I just wanted to see if I could do it with just fabric. And oh, you can. And that's what I'm here to show you how to do. So the other supply you need is 3 yards of Steam-A-Seam 2. This is 12 inches wide. If you get 18 inches wide, just get 2 yards. If you get the packages, get 2 packages. That should get us going, unless we have some disaster. But 3 yards should get us going. Okay, the bones of the pattern. All my patterns are large, and they're large for a reason. And people say, well, they are not $6. No, they're not $6 because they're full color and they have multiple pages, and I write in detail. Hopefully, all this little information will help you to be successful. So I just want you to know, all of my patterns are large like this and have multiple pages, and it is expensive to print these, especially now. And in the pattern, you're also going to have 11 by 17 pattern sheets. These are our patterns that we're going to put on our fused fabric and use them to cut out somewhere close to that line. And there's 4 of these, okay, 4 of these patterns. All the pieces are included, no tracing. You don't need to trace anything. And then we have our map, which I call the layout guide. And the layout guide is going to tell us where our pieces go. Okay, they're going to tell you exactly where everything goes, so you don't have to really think. On this pattern, you're going to get the gist of how the flowers all put together. It's going to open up your mind on possibilities that you can take into your creative venture. But it is really easy, but we don't tell people it was really easy, okay? We say it was really hard and I suffered through it, and then they think you're so amazing. And it's all about that, isn't it? Okay, so I'll put those aside for right now, because the most important thing we want to do is we want to make a color chart. Okay, this is really the important part of the pattern. I have the A color is this, B color is that, C color, and all the way down. And each one of these colors have been assigned a letter. A letter. So at home, if you have the pattern, you can go and you can see that and in fact, I'll even hold it up a little bit closer so you can see, because this is a good light. A is lighter than B. B is lighter than C. C is lighter than D. Then E is really dark, because that's this little spider that goes around the flower. F is a dark color. I'm going to do purple today, but I've done dark blue, purple, brown. You can find batiks that have like little seed impressions in them. That looks cool too. So if you want to pick something that you like, I just like the purple because everybody looks at it as a complete flower, a realistic flower. And then when they get up close, they say, oh, that's purple, but it works because a dark color, a dark value needs to be in number F and number E. Okay, then we have our leaves. And if you have the kit, I've picked out the leaves. And greens can make or break your quilt. Greens are like magic colors. So in the kit, I put greens that really pop these colors out. And then your J, that's just your background. Okay, so here's my fabric pack. And I'll just use it with the fabric pack. Now, when you open this up, they're in order. Okay, so you don't want to get them out of order. So what I do is I open this up. Okay, and I'm going to put my hand on top of that label, that tag, and then I'm going to flip this over. Okay, so the label is on top of my arm, and I'm just going to slide the bag off. You can keep that and use that for your bits. And then I'm going to turn this around because the fold goes at the top, and you have a Post-it label. I call them Post-its, but they're not really Post-its. It's just a strip of ABCs. And if you're at home and you didn't get a kit, make yourself a strip of this. Okay? And here's what we're going to do now. I'm going to label all my fabrics. I kind of separate them a little bit so nothing's hiding. And then I know this is going to be my A, my B, my C, my D. These are all your petals. Now your E is going to be that center, I call it a spider. F is your center of the flower. And then you've got G, H, and I. And if G, H, and I get mixed up, it doesn't matter on this quilt where they go, okay? Other quilts, yes, it will matter. Now I'm going to quickly pin these so that I don't lose, because if the phone rings and I have to leave the room or the air conditioner goes on, we will lose where these go. Now, if they get out of order, we don't care because they're all labeled. And that's what's fun. Okay, but I do need to find my A. Okay, here's my A fabric. Then you're going to need your glue stick. Here's my A, and I'm going to cut a little piece, okay, the size of this shape. And I used to have my students, let me show you, put your swatch right here. But what has happened, I've noticed with most of my students, this confuses the brain looking at that color and seeing that that color is a little bit different. It freaks your brain out. So what I have my students do now is cover that baby up, okay, so that you have a clear message that you're sending to the brain, and we don't need any more confusing things going on. So that's, I know, is my A. You see how I'm doing that? Now let's find our B. This my B. Here's B. C. D is a little bit lighter and brighter. There we go. And my E, this is my little spidery. On a sunflower, there's little crustaceans around the center where the seeds are. That's what that is supposed to be. And then here I'm using this one I'm going to use like this burgundy purpley color, which will be really pretty with this. Now, as we get going, sometimes these labels, a lot of times these labels fall off. Pins don't always hold. And, oh, wait, okay, I got H and I mixed up. This one is I, and this one is H. But like I say, it's easy to get mixed up when you start working with all these different colors. So you have to kind of have a system to keep your brain organized. Now, once I have those down, I'm not going to worry if this label falls off. If this label falls off as I'm working, I'm like, oh my gosh, what letter was this? I can go down here, go to my color chart and go, oh, it was H. Oh, thank goodness. Okay, now when I make design patterns and I'm doing lots of different color ways, this is priceless. And if you want to do another one of these flowers, now that you know how to do fusible flowers, and you want to do like the dogwood, you'll be really grateful you made the color chart. Okay, so don't whine, make the color chart or I'll come and get you. Okay, now the fun part. let's get our pattern piece, our pattern pages. Now, you can use your rotary cutter or you can use your scissors. But if you will notice on the page, right, let's look right over here. These are A. These three right here are A, meaning they're going to use the A fabric. And then they have a number, 2 and 3, for where they will lay on the layout guide. Here's A, A1, A2, A3. And so I know that's where they're going to go on my flower when we get going. And I'll explain more about that. So what I like to do is I'm going to just take I'm going to separate and put like letters together. And get rid of some of the white paper because it gives an illusion that you need more fabric than you do. Here is my D. Here's another D. I may put these guys together because I don't want to lose them. Okay, I have lost them before. And then the rest, these are all my C. So I'm just going to cut around it. Don't spend the time, detail cutting these out. It's just a waste of time unless that really thrills you. Okay, and if that thrills you, go for it. Not a lot of things in life that thrill us. So here, one of my best friends loves to iron sheets. So what am I to, She's a wonderful person. Okay, those are my B's. And then here's my E, F, and my center. This is my stem of my flower. Here's the center. That's that purpley color. Or it could be blue. It could be brown. And then here's the stem. Now I'm suggesting using the G fabric, but you can use whatever color you want. It works. And then here we have our leaves. Okay, let's start with number A. We're going to fuse our A fabric. Now, batiks do have a right and a wrong. This looks like the right side to me. This looks a little bit softer. I use both sides of the batik, but you find which side you want to have as your right side or the side that shows. So I'm going to use this. This is the back. So I'm going to get my fusible web. This is my fusible web, and it's in a roll, and I'm going to fuse about that amount of fabric. So I'm just going to kind of cut that size out. Now, before I do this, you may want to iron your fabric and get those wrinkles out. Sometimes I don't, but I will show you the right way to do it. Okay, so I'm steaming, getting the wrinkles out. And I think this was my wrong side. So on my steam-a-seam, the papers are really kind of both the same, only you're supposed to leave the grid on and take off the solid paper. Sometimes it comes off, sometimes it doesn't. The fusible web underneath, both sides are the same. Do you see how this is? I'm going to peel this paper off, and you can see the fusible web here. Okay, now it's really sticky. So I took the release paper off. I'm going to take the sticky side, and I'm going to lay it down. Now, sometimes I'll fold it, and I'll lay this up at the top as best I can, and then you can smooth it down. Now, my steam-a-seam is a little bit bigger than my fabric. So let's turn it over and look at it. I don't have any wrinkles. If you do have a wrinkle, just lift this up, smooth it back down. But I need to cut away, before we press, I need to cut away all this extra. Okay? If the steam-a-seam gets on your iron, and you want to make sure you iron all the way to the edges, the steam-a-seam melts on your iron very easily and turns to black tar. Okay, now I don't save these kind of pieces, but I will save this because I could piece a bunch of these on the back of a small piece if I ran out of fusible. Okay, so now I've got my fabric fused. I'm going to start fusing on the back. And I do have steam in my iron, and I start in one corner, and I'm just going to glide it, popping out any air bubbles. Okay, just like that. I'm on a hot cotton setting. Then I flip it over, and I will press from this side. Now, one of the things I like about steam-a-seam too, and you need to use the right fusible for the right technique. Okay, there's lots of fusibles on the market, but they're not used for the same fusing purpose. Okay, there's a lot of different fusing techniques, okay? Mine is just one of them. But steam-a-seam melts into the weave of the fabric, locks the weave, the little threads, and when you cut your shapes out, your fabric will not ravel because it melts into the weave, you know, of that fabric. Not all fusible web does it. Some fusible web, the more you iron it, the harder it gets, so you just touch it lightly with an iron. Other fusible webs, if you iron it too much, they'll peel off the fabric. So for my technique, I use steam-a-seam too. And please try to use the right fusible web when you take a class, or you will be very disappointed and you will have wasted your money. Okay, so now I have A done, and I can pin my A back on if I want, or I could leave it off because I know that from my color chart, that's A. So now I'm going to do B the same way, ironing out all the wrinkles, deciding which is the front and the back of the fabric. I'm cutting my steam-a-seam the size of the fabric, and I'm going to peel off the solid release paper and just start at the top and folding down my fusible web. If you get a wrinkle in it, go ahead and just lift it up, pop it out. Now I'm cutting away all the overlapping fusible web so I won't get sticky on my iron, and that's how easy that is. Here's B. Okay, and so on. And now I'll do all these fabrics. You don't have to watch me do it all. So get started. So I've put fusible on the back of all the fabrics, and I'm giving it one more hot press, and we will be ready to go. Make sure you get all the corners too when you're fusing. And you can see the bubbles will come out as you're pressing. And that's what you do. Give all your fabric a really nice hot steam. And then we're ready to go. So now let's cut out our shapes. Now, I want you to know that, you know, I talked about my technique is different than the way other people fuse. And every fusible artist is doing something different. So make sure you bring the right fusible for that class. When they say to bring such and such, bring that because their technique is based on that fusible. You cannot interchange them. Okay, so on mine, we do not draw on the back, and my pattern pieces are not going backwards because artists don't paint backwards. We want to look at the fabric. We've fused the fabric, and we're going to put our pattern pieces on the fabric because they're all going the right way. A lot of times when I'm doing a quilt, there's all these little striations, and sometimes maybe I want to take advantage of that. So if you're looking at the color, you're looking at the fabric, you can place your pieces where you want to go. Now on this quilt, you have small pieces in the package, so you can't really play around with that too much. So I just plop it anywhere and it works great. But you want to make sure your pattern pieces are on the fabric, not on the fabric. And then I put a pin in each one. And I'm going to go over to my next pieces. These are the bees. Here. Now, as you can see, my bees don't look like they're fitting on here, do they? Well, let me help. Let me show you, because there's a lot of extra white space around here. And when I cut it out, they all seem to fit really well. And you can get everything on here, no problem. So when you find that your fabric might be too small, try doing a little more fussy cutting to get everything in there. Because sometimes I have to use that fabric. It's just too perfect of a color, and I may not have enough. But if I cut away all the white, I usually can get because that's a lot of white in between those pieces. I can usually get everything on. And I'll have to tell my secretary to cut a little bit bigger bee. So let's take this off so we can use the whole piece. And then it's kind of like a little puzzle. And they all fit in. Okay? Squeeze them in next to each other. I'm going to put this big guy here. And here. This guy here. And this guy here. Okay? Do you see how they all fit? Kind of move them around. Get the lines kind of close to each other. Do the same for C, and here's D, and it's just those two pieces on D, the darker color. This is why I said you need a lot of pins. So I like to pin them all on, making sure and looking at them, they're all going the right way, aren't they? The fabric side is up, the pieces are on, and this way I know I've got them all going the right way. Then I sit down and I'll just cut out somewhere close to that line. Now, you can cut on the line, outside of the line, however you want to do. But let me show you. This is so freeing. First, when I cut, I take the piece away from the big chunk of fabric, okay? Because it's too hard to manipulate this when I cut. And then I go in, and I'm just going to cut. Well, you need your glasses on for sure. Okay, I'm just cutting somewhere. Sometimes I'm on the line, sometimes I'm around. You don't have to be perfect on cutting on this, okay? Your second grade teacher is not here. She's not going to yell at you if you don't cut right, okay? Because when I take this pattern piece off, whoops, look at that. Oh, I cut a divot. But when I take the pattern piece off, oh, look at that. That's a perfect petal. And nobody knows I made that oopsie. So don't sweat the small stuff when you're cutting out a Melinda Bula pattern, okay? We don't have to be that precise. And then I'm just going to have a pile of my pieces sitting over here. You're going to have a lot of little trash bits. And now we're just going to sit. Well, I'm going to do my greens. And I'm going to do my, in fact, here is my spider piece. And what I do for this is I pin it, some of them right at the tip. Like every second one, I'll just pin at the tip to hold those long stragglers. And that should do it. Then our flower center, I'm going to use this pretty purple. I'm just going to put one in the middle. And then we have our greens. And I think I'm going to put, this isn't G, this one's H, but I think I'm going to put my long stem on this one. No, maybe I'll do this one. Yeah, because this is the darker. G is the darker. That must be why I was doing it. So the darker is behind the flower. There you go. Got that. Here's the other G's. And sometimes I save the little bits over here because we can add more leaves. And I'll show you how to do that. If you want to add more leaves to your sunflower or some shadows and highlights. And here is H. Oh yeah, we got a lot of H. So we can add some more leaves if you want with H. And, oh, here they are. And my I. So now I've pinned them all at one time. You know, going the right way. Everything is on top of the fabric, the color. My pattern pieces are on the color, not on the solid fusible. They're on the color. And I can now sit and talk to my friends and cut out and not screw up. That's the key. Sometimes I can't talk and cut at the same time. How about you? Okay, here we go. I've got my layout guide. All my pieces are cut. Let's build the flower. All the pattern pieces are labeled with a letter for the color to use. And now we're just going to look at the numbers. So this is B1, C2, and so on. First thing I want to do is I want to get some parchment paper. And I'm just going to cut this to fit so it's easier to work with. So now I take my parchment paper and I like to pin it to the edge here so that it doesn't wiggle around, because then I will get an off registration. Whoop. There we go. I just pin it at the top. It'll be fine. I mean, you can put one at the bottom too. Now we're ready to put you can put your pieces down in any order you want, because everything is just sticking there. Like if I wanted to put down, this is C4, gonna look and see where C4 is, which is right there. I could put that down right now. You could go, if you like to go in order, start with your D's, then the C's, then the B's, and then the A's. And we're just gonna lay it somewhere inside of this line. Now, it's not going to always be perfect because, you know, I drew this and I'm not perfect. But let's do our D's first. Here's my D's. And this is D2 and D2. Goes right in here. It's a little bit bigger than my drawing, but that's okay. We're going to make a more voluptuous flower. I made the leaves the last time I printed this a little bit bigger. I just thought it looked nicer having a little bit bigger leaves. Now, these first few leaves, I'm just going to press them with a hot iron, and they will melt to the parchment paper. The parchment paper is non-stick. So sometimes your pieces aren't going to stick, but if I need to lift it up, I could still lift it up. Okay, so just know that eventually all the pieces will stick to the fabric and you won't have to press it. And I don't like to be really quick with pressing everything down in case I want to tweak it or I want to change something or add something. The beauty about the sticky is it sticks in place, so you can orchestrate your composition and you can remove things when you don't like them. I love it. It's like foolproof. When you're painting, it's really hard to remove the paint. But here with the Fusible, you can remove it. So now I'm going to do my C's. This is a C5. Where's C5? C5, 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 C, C, C5, right here. Oops, got it going the wrong way. C5. C1. Going from D to C to B is kind of the way all the pieces go. Like here's where 2 goes. And then the B's will go on top of it. So start with your D's, then your C's. And that will make you happy. Now you can save all these pieces and make more flowers if you want, you know. Because this pattern piece can be reused over and over if you want to make some more for like Christmas gifts or whatever. I've probably made, in my lifetime since I designed this, gosh, probably 10 of these. I've given a lot away. They're good gifts to give away. Now this one, I forgot what the number is, but I went over, found the piece. Okay, it's B2. So you can't talk and do this at the same time. At least I can't. Okay, there's B2. And here's my other B's. That's B1. B1 is right there. This is the second time I videotaped this because I forgot to turn Do Not Disturb on, and I was getting a lot of text messages. Not really good. Someday I'll figure out how to do this. This is 7. This is 6, which is right there. So if you have trouble getting the fusible or the release paper off, rip the edge of your fabric. Your fabric won't rip, but the paper will, and then you can just get your finger under there and put that in. Now they're sticking to each other, and that I like. B4. In fact, I think you do B5 first, and then B4 goes on top. B5 first. This is B5. Oops, we want to go all the way up to here. Now, if we have some little holes, I'll show you how to cover those, because that does happen. And then here's 4. We'll put 4 in here. Here's 3, which goes right in here. Now, when we take it off, you know, we're working on white paper right here. We take this off. We're going to put it in Audition. We can audition background fabrics to get the right look. And that's why I don't give you a background fabric in the kit. Because when I was teaching this, like in Houston or at AQS, I would have you always bring your own fabric, because then it makes it yours. Okay, it looks a little bit different than everybody else's. And you can make it if you want it to go in a room, or you know somebody has a favorite color is purple, and put a purple background on it, which looks lovely. I've done that one before. Here's A2. Now the lightest color. And in a flower like this, the light color comes towards the viewer and the darker colors recede. Okay, let's get this off. Okay, and that's what gives the illusion. Okay, now these are looking good. Now we have to get on our hairy spider. I call this the hairy spider. And so, can you see, I can see through my fabric right here, and I can see that right here is one little tendril. In fact, it's this tendril goes right in there. And then I can see over here, in fact, I can even lift this up so you can see it. There's where the other tendril goes. Those are the end tendrils. What I mean by that is this is the end, this is the end, and they will fit right in like that. And you line those two up, all of these will just naturally lay in the right place. Okay, so let's peel off the back and let's try that. So I'm going to put this one over here, and then I'm going to angle this one till it gets in this little position. Can you see under there? If you can't see, use a light box. But there, I got it in the perfect position. That was so easy. Now, the A pieces have to go on top of this. So you lift this up, and we're going to put, whoops, and we're going to put the A's on top. A, and A, like that. Okay? Because those little petals are cupping over and out. And that's what will give that illusion. Now, we're going to put in our center, and our center needs to go right down under here too. So, peel this off, and he will go right in here. And he goes kind of like this. So again, I'm just going to lift these guys up and let them flip over. In fact, you can even wiggle it a little bit more. And there we go. We have our flowers. Okay, now here it's not really matching up because I wanted to cover that hole. In fact, you can make it, work with it a little bit more. Get it like you want it. I'm going to do that. and that. There we go. And that. Okay? Perfect. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my leaves. But I think I'm going to give this a little press with the iron. And don't rub, just press it up and down so everything sticks to each other. Okay, and I like the way this is looking. And now I'm going to put in my leaves. And here's where the H goes. And you can see, here's another H. You can get your stem in first, probably. You can make this longer if you want. I have had people use a half a yard of fabric as their background, and I can't remember which way this goes, but I think I like it that way. Now you're getting the idea that you really don't have to follow the lines exactly. I hope you're getting that, okay? Because that's what this is. You get somewhere close with these right colors and values, and you will have something. That's what Impressionist artists were doing. The Impressionists, which I love. Okay, I'm going to lift this guy up and then put these back down. Ooh, that's looking good. Now, do you see where there's shading underneath, where you can kind of see shadowing and shading? Now, when you put this on a dark background, you won't see this contrast in color right here with the dark green. Okay, that'll disappear. So don't freak out. Okay, this is I. And this I goes down here, and I can see that we're missing a letter there. But that's I. This one right here is a blank one, and it's I. So just know. This one is G. You can put it in like how you like it. This one is I right there. And this one is G right there. Okay. And through the magic, I happen to have one completed right here. And I've taken it off of the pattern. And now you can see it's just on the parchment paper. And then I went in and I added some little veins. I went in and added some little piece of contrasting fabric, and I just cut a little wedge here, and I cut a little darker wedge in here. You can also do it with the fabrics if you want to put a little wedge of something in it. Now, where you see the shadowing here, do you see how the dark shadowing kind of has disappeared? When we put it on the dark background, it'll disappear even more. But these little things, when we go to do the free motion stitching, I'll show you how to stitch around that. And that ends up being another color and value in your flower and gives a deep, rich look to your petals. So don't cover those up. We aren't doing a Baltimore album white rose here. We want those to show, and as long as they're curved like that, we're going to move our stitches around that like it's its own piece. Same thing in here. This will be like its own piece, and then this will be like its other own piece, and it gives a lot of dimension and depth. I just love doing that, okay? Now we need to find a background fabric, okay? So I'll be right back. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to audition a border. We need to take this off of the parchment paper, and we're going to put it on a background fabric. So what I want to do, we'll move this over here so you can see it. I got it on my pressing pad, and I'm going to press it one more time. Whoops, don't do that one. Just to make sure everything's down. And then I'm going to flip it over. Okay, and I'm going to press it from the back. Okay. And now I'm going to peel off the parchment paper. And as you can see, it is hot and it is sticky. If you ever feel like your fusible is not sticking, iron it again with some warm steam. Okay, there we go. And it's very sticky. So when I have a big quilt sometimes, and I'm worried about registration or it flopping, the sticky flopping back on itself, which you don't want it to do, I'll leave it with the sticky up, and then I'll grab my background fabric. We'll audition this one. And I will, make sure that's right. I'm going to lay my background fabric over my flower, and I'm going to press with my hands. That way I haven't really disturbed the registration, and your more little hands make it stick, and then voila, there it is. Now it is on this background fabric that kind of has a little floral print. I wasn't sure if this would work, if I would like it. I kind of like it. But then we need to put a border on this. I'm going to show you how to do a mitered border on your flower. Like, let me show you this one. This one has a border. And I'm going to show you how to do this. So think about when you're auditioning your, here's another one. Although if you do dots, my dots were not, I did not cut them straight. So you get this wonky, like I'm dizzy feeling, which usually I am dizzy. But I would be careful with dots. If you're going to use dots or squares on the straight of grain, make sure you cut them so they don't go wonky and go off, because it makes everybody feel like they're seasick. So I kind of like this, but what kind of border would I put on it? Would I put just a yellow border? What would that look like? So I kind of play around. Can you see that? The yellow border? Let's go up here. That could be really cool. Now for the border, you need a fat quarter. And I'll show you how we're going to do a faux miter. It looks like you've done a miter. And the border is going to be fused. No fusible goes on your background fabric, just on the border. Okay, so this could be a really pretty look, I'm thinking. I like the textures and this texture, so this is a good idea. So I'm going to put this in my I like it pile. Now, I need to find another fabric, so I'm going to lift this up, turn it upside down, and pull this fabric off. And let's try something else. Now, I get asked, how do you know if it's right? Well, how do you know if it's right? You have a feeling. And it's going to make you go, oh. And if it makes you go, that means no. Okay? We want to have a, oh, yeah. Oh, let's try purple. Okay, remember it's upside down. I'm going to lay the purple fabric over it. Press it with my hands. I mean, eventually the flower will get fuzzies on the fusible. Now here's another one. What about this one? Purple's kind of pretty. Purple's kind of pretty. What would a border look like? What if I did something like this? What does that look like? Can you see that? Let me see if you can see that. It's pretty, but that one with the yellow kind of did something to me. That would work. Okay, here's another purple. Let's see if this would work. This is a great place to get out your CAF fabrics. That might work. That could be pretty. Now, our border is only going to be 2.5 inches, so fold it like it's 2.5 inches. That could be good. I think I like that better than this one that kind of goes blue. We don't need to add any more colors in here. Well, okay, well that's one too. I'll put that aside. Now we're going to flip it back over. Let's try this pretty blue. Really pretty. See how the color that you put it on changes the look of your flower? And then when you put that border around it, you get a whole different look. That looks very pretty. I love this dark blue. I have a thing for blue and white china right now. This is almost a purpley blue. So what if we did a simple border, I don't know, like this. I'm gonna fold it. Now I don't know what the camera, kind of changes the look. I don't know. It'll be more down here. I don't know if that thrills me as much. Maybe a different border. And so what you do is what I would do is I'd go through and start auditioning a bunch of fabrics. Fern on the background. I have this on my website. This has a really pretty little fern. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, that looks pretty good too. That might even look good with this one. I don't know. That could really, that dark color with just that little bits of green is really pretty. So I've got my hands full figuring out which one of these I want to do. Either this one or this black with the, I'll have to audition them back and forth and see which one I have the bigger feeling for. Okay, so now you go and try and find your background, and I'm going to come back and show you how to put a mitered border, a fused miter border on your beautiful flower to finish it off. I decided to do the yellow border with the floral black. I ironed Steam 2 to the back of my fat quarter of yellow border fabric. Okay, now I'm going to take my fusible fabric and I'm going to make a straight cut right here using the lines on my cutting mat to give me a nice straight line. There we go. Change your blade if you need to. I probably should change mine, but okay. So now I'm going to line it up. I'm going to cut 2.5 inch strips all the way along this fabric. So here I am. I'm going to cut with my rotary cutter 2.5 inch strips all along this fat quarter of fused fabric. It'll give me about 6 strips. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I give myself at least 6 strips. There's still a little bit extra fabric if I have to use it, but 6 strips will go around 4 sides really easily on our quilt. Now, before we add our border, I need to press all of this from this side. In fact, let's do it right now. I'm going to press it one more time. Really good. You can, and this would be a good time to use steam. Okay. And sometimes just holding it there, if there's sizing in your fabric, sometimes it has a hard time adhering with sizing in it. You can wash all your fabric if you want, but I never do. And I've been doing this for 20 years, so I'm too excited to get to making the quilt. Now, that's pretty good. But what I do next is flip it over and iron it from the back again with your hot steam. That way, the layers of the petals, we will be making sure that heat is going through all the layers of our flower petals. And that just gives us a little extra security. I'm going to cut my batting 3 inches on either side bigger than my quilt top and 3 inches top and bottom bigger So that's like 6 inches bigger than this dimension total, top and bottom sides. And then your backing fabric needs to be that same size. 3 inches bigger on either side, top and bottom, or a total of 6 inches, so that you know you have 3 inches hanging over your quilt top. I'll go get that and I'll be right back. Okay, here's my batting. Okay, now I'm going to get my backing fabric, and that will be the backing fabric so you can kind of see how I've got it. So I'm going to make my backing fabric, and I'm just going to let this sit here. Remember, there's no fusible web on the back of this. It's just sticking. I use a low loft cotton batting. It's in your supply list and in your pattern, but it's a low loft by Quilter's Dream. It's called Request. Okay, so we've got our backing, our batting, our quilt top, and it is sticking, and it you know, because it's kind of felt or flannel board, the quilt top sits really nice and secure right on your batting. But I like to get a few safety pins, and just safety pin. I start in the middle. And I just do a few little safety pins, just so if you've ever had your quilt back fold up while you've been quilting, it's a nightmare. We've all cried over that one. So I'm going to pin it in a few places. Now, because this is a fusible quilt and because it's a small quilt, we don't have to go crazy with the pinning. But what I really do want to pin is I want to pin the corners. Put a pin in every corner. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Put a pin in every corner and put a pin right here in the middle, just so we have no surprises later. In fact, you don't want to put it too close because we still have to add our border. So I'm going to put it right about there. We are going to add our border, and we're going to do a mitered border right here. And everybody is going to think, oh my goodness, look at her. She just mitered those corners. But I didn't. And I'm not measuring anything. Okay, this is my strip. I'm going to take my first strip. It has fusible on the back. And I'm going to peel off the release paper. Okay, now this is sticky, and I'm going to lay it on this first corner. I'm going to lay it 1/4 of an inch, and I kind of give it a little look to make sure at both sides. Yeah, that's 1/4 of an inch. And I'm going to lay it, let me see so you can see that I've laid it over. And I'm laying it right on over my quilt top. There we go. I like this yellow. It makes me happy. Yellow is a happy color. There you go. Okay, now I'm going to lay this right along this edge, and I do want to crisscross right here. Right here I want to crisscross, so when I cut, they're overlapping. So I'm making sure it's 1/4 of an inch. Now, if you wanted to mark it with a little pencil, go for it. But you know, this is just a little wall quilt. So I know I've got it 1/4 of an inch. You can lift it up, and it's just laying right on top. Okay, so now here's my first miter cut. The first thing you want to do is get a long blade scissors. Okay, long blade scissors. And I am going to, and my Karen K's work too. I'm going to lift these up. Yes, they've got batting on them, but that's okay. I'm going to lift them up. I want them to lay on top of each other. I'm going to hold them together. And you want to make sure, there you go. And I'm going to take my scissors, open my scissors, and I'm going to put this little V right here at the back of my scissor blades. And I'm pointing my tip right to that tip, that little V. I'm going to give it one nice straight cut. And then I'm going to get rid of that one, get rid of that one. And then I take my little edges and I'm just going to let them kind of kiss, just a little overlap. Then I take my iron and I melt them together. Oh, look at that nice miter. Now I'm going to press this down here so it won't move, and I'm going to press this just halfway. Okay, now let's do the next miter. Okay, but ooh, look at this. This is a straight line right here. We're going to do our miter here. So how are we going to blend these in? Now this, if you've ever hung wallpaper, you will know this trick. So maybe I'm going to blend them right about here. So I'm going to cut this one short. I may move this safety pin down a little bit. I can move it later after I get my borders on. Okay. So I think I'm going to just add this right about here. So let's take the paper off. In fact, I need, I don't think so. There, this one will do it. The key is when you do this to always give it a little undulating curve. Then it's really hard for the eye to see that. Okay, and that's a piece that I shredded right there, but my binding's going to go right over it, so I can hide it. So here we have our last miter and our quilt. Is almost done. We're just going to have to do our thread play. Just our thread play. The thing that makes it all work is the painting with the thread on top. And we draw. Let me press this Okay, now I'm going to spin this around and you tell me, see if you can find where I put the pieces together. Do you see it? No, and we didn't measure anything, did we? Now, when we get to, we're going to start when we quilt in the center doing a basting stitch. I'm going to show you how to do that. Then we'll do the background, and then we'll do the borders. And when we do the borders, we aren't doing free motion anymore. I put my walking foot on it, and I do a straight stitch all the way around. And when I get to the corner, I drop my needle down, and then I go straight across here. And every time you get to the miter, you put your needle down, pivot, and then go along the edge. And I'll show you how to do it. And then the stitches mimic the miter, and it looks like you've mitered. Let's get ready. I think I like this one.